You know what? I'm gonna end up yapping a lot later on, so let's make this short. Hi, I'm Gems. I make 2v8 videos. I gather stats from my games to find patterns in a poor attempt to sound smarter. I'm such a survivor main that in my almost 2k hours of playing, I've only tried killer and customs. But I do a better job at asking killer mains questions about 2v8 than behavior does. Oh yeah, I also make questionnaires for this amateur shit. Speaking of questions, you wanna know how 2v8 went for me this iteration? Anyway, game mode's looking a bit like week-old bread, so let's talk about it and add to all the absolute positivity going on in the fan base. All data was collected from November 6th to November 19th. Special thanks to my game stat collecting volunteers, Herpington, Nelson, and Zoo0443. You guys really helped me get to 224 games this iteration, and I can't thank you enough for your time. Here are the guidelines myself and my volunteers followed, but enough of that, let's jump right into the video. For this iteration of 2v8, the new killers were the Dark Lord and the Executioner, both characters from the game developing company Konami. The Legion, however, was removed from the roster for a power rework. No new maps were added to 2v8. Survivors could now pick themselves up after recovering 70% of their health bar instead of the previous 94%. New cosmetics were given to the Dark Lord, the Executioner, and Cheryl Manson. Trevor Belmont was given a new character skin, Richter Belmont. These characters were also available to try out for free during the 2v8 period. Players could earn various Castlevania and Silent Hill rewards for completing 2v8 quests. The most chosen killer for this iteration was the Mastermind at 56 out of 224 games, followed closely by the Dark Lord at 52 games. Almost tied for third are the Oni, 43 games, and the Executioner, 42 games. The least picked killers were the Nemesis at 16 games, with the Nurse once again in last place at 13 games. It should be noted that both Pyramid Head and Dracula were available on free trial during the first 2 weeks of 2v8. Let's start with our new killers. You get Pyramid Head, who adds a different type of challenge with his wall-passing projectile. And then you have Dracula, which is basically Furry Wesker and Goth Pyramid Head mashed together, so it wasn't like the gameplay was too different from the last iteration. Pyramid Head was fine. He's fine. I didn't find his extended Punishment of the Damned range to be too long, which surprised me given how many more players and obstacles there are in 2v8. I also felt his Torment Trail couldn't be spammed across the map as easily, but there were a few times I did get caught off guard or I was cornered into the trail. Overall, Pyramid Head wasn't too oppressive, even with his base kit Mori. As with the Dark Lord, can I say something controversial? Like, just a little survivor-sided as a treat? Why does this man have 3 wolf bounds? Like, I'm sorry, he's got 2 other powers and basically no cooldown. What do you mean he needs to have 3 wolf just— Yes, I know there's a lot of map junk. Anyway, he's alright. I found a lot of players lean toward the bat and wolf forms during matches, so basically he was only using 2 of his abilities anyway. Between the 3 dashes, the third point of view, pallet shredding, the ability to catch survivors off guard while coming around corners, all those combined definitely made Dracula a much more powerful force in chase. His bat form allowed for quick coverage across the much larger 2v8 maps, while his Hellfire countered the many additional loops. This leads me back to our favorite killer of this iteration, Wesker. And as I said in the last 2v8 video, his mobility and infection are probably the reasons why people favor him, since he could keep the pressure on the gens. Unsurprisingly, this is probably why Oni climbed his way from 4th place to 3rd place. His ability to capitalize off of early hits, his quick power turnaround, the increase in turn rate and dash speed, and the ability to slide along surfaces makes him exceptionally lethal in 2v8. Though he is more difficult to master than Wesker, Oni's buffs in 2v8, along with the less experienced players coming to the game mode, could make it much easier to get leverage for the rest of the match. For the bottom of the list, It wasn't too surprising to see Nemesis fall from the middle of the pack to second to last. He has no mobility, his power forces him to hit survivors 3 times instead of 2, and his zombies, well, let's just say they're not always useful in getting survivors off gens or attacking during chase. And with one less support killer to aid him, Nemesis wound up being more of a chore to play in the fast-paced game mode. Nurse stays at the bottom as she requires hours of practice and game knowledge, making her less enticing to pick up for players looking to try something new. But when discussing mobility and gen pressure, that leads us to the elephant in the room. In a first for 2v8, a killer was removed from the roster, and across the globe, Legion mains let out a cry of agony.
No.
Behavior removed Legion in hopes to rework their power to better suit 2v8. And in my opinion, Behavior wants to keep Legion since they are the easiest killer to pick up, making 2v8 much more accessible for casual and less experienced players. Removing Legion would reduce the variety for killer pair synergy and challenges that survivors would have to face while in the trial. And as of now, it's uncertain if every licensed character will make its way into 2v8, making it imperative to get as many of the original characters in as possible. However, removing Legion has helped other killers look more favorable. But the pattern remains the same. Killers with high mobility or easy to grasp powers draw the most players. Now, you could disagree and say how Blight, Hillbilly, and Nurse, 3 characters which arguably are A and S tier killers, were all towards the bottom of the list 2 iterations in a row. But again, it's about who is playing 2v8. In my opinion, as strong as those 3 killers are, it's so much easier to learn characters like Huntress or even Trapper than how to properly bounce off objects with Blight or manage Overdrive with Hillbilly. Last iteration, I noted how all the map junk can make it harder to play Hillbilly. Meanwhile, Oni has an insane turn rate, making obstacles no issue for even a casual player. He can slide off of them with ease. And it's why in 1v4, we see more ghoul players than nurses. Transversing the terrain became a lot easier with less experience required for execution, which leads us back to Legion. And that killer ticks all the boxes. Easy to understand power, easy to use power, quick results, and good mobility. This leaves us wondering how Behavior will make Feral Frenzy 2v8 appropriate. Every counter for Legion has less impact in 2v8. Stun with a pallet? If you can get to a non-thrown one in time. Stay apart? In 2v8? Ha! Don't heal? With a second killer breathing down my neck? Body blocking? That angst-riddled teenager's already light years away by the time my collision has returned. All these techniques work great in 1v4, but in 2v8, it could be a little bit more of a challenge. It's not impossible, and getting to a pallet and holding onto your deep wound are your best bets, but there's always that second killer that makes things a little tricky. No new maps were added for this iteration of 2v8. As for the top occurring maps, Raccoon City Police Station and the Treatment Theater were almost tied for first place, with Raccoon City at 22 games and the hospital at 21 games. For this iteration, there is a potential map that could have been added, which is Midwich Elementary School from the original Silent Hill game. However, with 2 floors, narrow hallways, crowded classrooms, and a large courtyard in the middle of the map, it's easy to see that it would not be appropriate for 2v8. The school would have needed to have bigger rooms, meaning longer hallways, which in turn makes it harder for killers and survivors to get to the other side of the map easily unless they had a mobility power or class. It's kind of a shame because Midwich is quite unique in its appearance, and it would have been nice to have another indoor map, but it's just not formatted appropriately for 2v8. Maybe in the future, if we get another Silent Hill chapter, we could possibly get a map from that, but we'll just have to wait and see. The most picked class for the Survivor Wall was once again Escapist, while Guide continues to see dwindling numbers. Escapist continues to dominate with its self-sufficient kit, while Guide leaves players yearning for a more engaging role. For the killer role, Shadow has shot up to the top, while Enforcer was noticeably skipped on. This change could be due to the lack of Legion, who is negatively impacted by the undetectable status, the higher pick rate for other killers, the addition of Pyramid Head and Dracula, and other classes offering more benefits than Enforcer does. These patterns are further backed up by the poll Behavior ran on their YouTube page. They asked players which class they were most likely to pick when playing 2v8, and the results, while not an exact match, are quite similar to what I saw in my games. In my questionnaire, I asked players which class from the opposing side they disliked the most. For killers, it wasn't so much one class in particular, but one ability from several classes. Survivors sprinting off across the map before the chase can even begin for the escapist class, the almost immediate heals of multiple players at once from the medic class, and the endless pallets and difficulty to maintain dead zones with the scout class. Most survivors, on the other hand, were nervous about the stealthy shadow players, always afraid where they were lurking next after a fresh hook. After 6 iterations, no new classes have been added, nor, as far as I'm aware, the discussion to add more has been made public. Yet fans of the game mode, including myself, have been pleading for some variety, especially for the survivor role. Survivors are finding the current selection bland and unchallenging, while killers are finding it difficult to deal with ability stacking while the gens are flying. For this section, I want to discuss some broad ideas for new classes and some potential changes to the existing classes for survivors. Don't worry, killer mains, I don't got anything to say about you right now. I'm staying in my lane, kinda, a little bit. For guide, Blast Mine should have the lifetime on a generator lowered from 120 seconds to 90 seconds. This is to reduce the strain on killers' eyes and give them more time to patrol other generators. For Escapist, increase the exhaustion status from 20 seconds to 40 seconds long when Sprint Burst is activated. Reduce Sprint Burst radius from 12 meters to 8 meters. These changes force survivors to be more mindful when they use Sprint Burst, but still allow them to be used when repairing generators or healing with other players. Another change, given medic strength, would be to swap the self-care unlockable perk to something else, such as Troubleshooter, Parental Guidance, Premonition, or Lightweight, but only when they're injured. If Sprint Burst continues to be problematic for killers, perhaps a different passive ability should be implemented instead, and the unlockable could be Lithe. For Medic, reduce the healing speed from 50% to 40%. Reduce the healing progress bonus from 50% to 40%. This will still allow for quick heals, but prevent mid-chase full heals and reduce instantaneous resets in large groups. In addition, the medic player should only receive a reduction in ability cooldown time when they save a player from the hook. No more standing around and getting rewarded for it. You have to put the time in to get the pay. For Scout, the cooldown time to fix a pallet should increase from 60 seconds to 80 seconds. Perhaps Scouts should only be allowed to fix broken pallets and not be able to pick up pallets. Pallets that are remade become fragile pallets and are marked for clarity. Replacing a pallet should take 5 seconds instead of the 3 seconds that it currently is. Now, onto some general ideas. First, each survivor class should be limited to 3 players per class. Second, make more class-centric daily challenges for less popular classes, such as playing a specific class a set number of times, or using specific abilities from those less popular classes. For survivors, there should be a moral support class where players do background tasks to maintain the well-being of their teammates. Another class should revolve around chests, getting better items with add-ons, or performing chest actions to gain tokens that go toward gens, heals, or self-preservation. As for killers, there should be a class that causes the exhaustion status to counter escapist and future exhaustion perks. Another class should include the hindered status, such as after hooking a survivor. To counter medic, Sloppy Butcher should be a part of one of the classes. Whether in my questionnaires or on social media posts, you'll find one of the most requested class types to be boons and hexes. But you know what? I have a hot take. I'm reconsidering the boon and hex class idea. I think what's difficult about the Hex class idea is that the powers can be snuffed out, and with so many survivors around, it would just be hard to defend those totems, especially if killers are already struggling to defend gens without any regression abilities. Sure, you could give the perk Dominance to protect the totems at first, and base kit Thrill of the Hunt, but I don't think killers are looking for side objectives when they're trying to defend the objective. So, unless behavior allows for hexes to be reignited, I think most players would prefer classes that can't lose their abilities. But if you're a killer main, sound off in the comments. I'm sure a lot of you have a different opinion than me. On the other hand, boons could potentially work. It gives survivors a chance to do some other objective besides generators, and fortunately, killers would only need 2 seconds to snuff one out. But given how classes function currently in the game mode, the abilities are meant to be used globally, meaning that they can be used wherever the need is, rather than in just one isolated spot. So, which boons would actually work then? We already have a strong healing class, and base kit Unbreakable. Illumination gives too much visual clutter in a large group, and maps are available in chests. Perhaps Dark Theory and Shadow Step could work. Both give the survivor a chance to escape, and so far only one class has an exhaustion perk. However, I don't think killer mains are jumping in joy at the idea of players having extra haste with how frustrating remote Sprint Burst has been. Shadow Step could work as a great counter to all the aura reading, and killers can snuff it out at any point. More killers, more maps, no new classes, no new objectives. It's not a new observation that many 2v8 critics have talked about the game mode being 1v4 with extra steps, especially from the survivor point of view. It's my belief that behavior tries to make 2v8 as similar to 1v4 as possible. This is because it would be confusing for newer or casual players to see killers suddenly get new powers or abilities. It's easier to learn through play, without having to read the notes, that Wesker has 3 bounce, or that Oni has a higher turn rate. But imagine if Wesker could now teleport when he bounds, or Oni becomes twice his size when enraged. How confusing would that be for players who don't consistently play DBD? Even casual killer players trying out a new character may find themselves disappointed when the power doesn't translate back to 1v4. This is why I think Legion won't get a full makeover for 2v8, which could lead to the same problems cropping up again if a rebalance to their kit fails. In addition, the classes are pre-existing perks packaged together for synergy, and to prevent metas like in 1v4. These abilities are simple and familiar, even to casual players. Their experiences with these perks and how they function in 1v4 can translate smoothly into 2v8. There's no need to do research to see if your build works together. You just pick a class and play. The only time a person may care about synergy is with the killer role. And this autopiloting might be nice for casuals who hate the stress of 1v4, but boring as heck for veterans looking for a unique experience outside the main game. But this is not a good reason not to add new things. As suggested before, making just a few new classes would help add variety, and if casual players learn the names of the perks the classes are based on, it might convince them to buy DLCs with those perks to use in 1v4. I think not offering a chance for casual players to experiment with new killers, new perks, and new objectives won't convince them to come back to 1v4, or at least not without their meta builds. With no variety, killer players get stuck with survivors stacking the same problematic stuff. Then killers begin to stress over the gen rushing, leading to them swapping to killers who keep up best with the gen speeds. And with the same killers always popping up in matches, and with the uninspired gameplay, survivors get bored and they go back to 1v4, or they simply just quit. On and on the cycle goes, and it's why the game mode feels stagnant. It wasn't until I started reading other people's opinions about Legion's removal that I began to realize how much they actually helped to keep the gen pressure on. Last iteration, more people ended up dying, even when most games had all 8 generators pop. This iteration though, the numbers have flipped, with a slightly larger margin between the ones who escaped and the ones who died. And while there are many reasons for this switch, it's hard not to ask if Legion had some hand in making it easier to come away with more kills. And as always, yet another iteration where over 90% of the games ended with all 8 generators completed. In my Resident Evil 2v8 video, I talked at length about some of the solutions to gen rushing. So, here's an updated and improved idea list. Add extra charges to each generator. Make most generators allow a maximum of 2 players on it at once. Minimize number of gens that allow for 3 or 4 players. Give base kit corrupt intervention to 4 random generators across the map. This will help prevent all survivors from having the ability to jump onto a generator within the first 5 seconds of the game. This will also help killers narrow down which generators the survivors are working on. While testing out alternative slowdown methods, remove the catch-up mechanic. Once data has been collected, consider if a catch-up mechanic is needed for either side. While the idea of a gen protection class is enticing, I think limiting regression to a class would just lead to seeing a majority pick it while other classes become forgotten. Gen regression is a common denominator amongst all killers and should not be gatekept behind a class. You know, I love doing 2v8 videos. I really do. I don't mean that sarcastically at all. Even though I sound like it, I'm just tired. I love seeing what the trends are. I love seeing how this game mode just morphs and shapes over time. I've done a lot of these videos. I enjoy doing them. And it makes me happy when I hear that people want to keep playing. But, you know, even as the 2v8 person, well, barely, I can't ignore that when I go into a game, I could deal with killers that are sweating their balls off, with survivors who leave you to go to second stage. And then the next game, I'm going against killers who are just trying to have fun playing a new character, and you got survivors teabagging them at the exit gate like they did something. I don't know. I think it just goes to show that this game mode is really, it's meant to be not competitive in the same sense as 1v4 is. It's meant to be chaotic, it's meant to be fun, it's meant to be not something you stress about, but you go in with your friends, whether it's a survivor or killer, and you just have a good time. You just have a good time in the chaos and you have funny moments together. But I think as more people play and they get used to the game mode, they get smarter with it, they understand how it works, it just makes it not as enjoyable. I really think there needs to be something that gets thrown in that helps mediate some of this stuff. I really want this game mode to succeed, and we have so many killers we still need to add, so many maps we can experiment with, and there's so many ideas, there's so many perks you can put together to make some really fun objectives. I think this is the perfect time to experiment with all that, because if the end goal is truly to make this permanent, which maybe I need to make a short video on my opinions on that, because I got some hot takes, but if they truly want this to be permanent and something that people will come back to, or bring back some of the fan base that has given up because 1v4 is just too sweaty or too competitive or too boring, you need to let this be an experimental space. I know 2v8 does not reflect 1v4 gameplay, and not everything from 2v8 can work in 1v4 or can be adapted to 1v4, but it's a great space to just experiment with different ideas. I just don't understand what the hesitancy is. I don't know if it's just because they're shoving in 4 2v8s in 1 year, or just all the other projects, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes, it seems. And I don't blame anyone for feeling quite negative and let down. I think as far as I know, there's no dates for any upcoming 2v8s just yet. And I'm hoping between this survey and the last survey, they know relatively how often people want this game mode and they can adjust to that. But, you know, I really think personally 2v8 needs to be more of a novelty, and given more time, as I said in my last video, to really try and push the envelope and make something different and weird, but maybe maybe now they're scared because so many people just don't like stuff. They just scream when something's different. I don't know. You're not going to please everyone. But being boring and stale is not the way to go. Always, in my opinion, push, innovate, experiment, create. Give yourself time for that. I don't know if that's their goal. And I think the game mode as is, it works, it functions, it offers a plethora of options. But it's kind of just cookie cutter right now. I think some risks need to be taken, and they got their formula now and that's what they're comfortable with, but I really hope they at least try something new next time. Something. I really think classes need to be included. Just give us 2. Give us 2 new classes for each role, and you'll see a significant change, in my opinion. Just make them good classes. But I'm hoping. There's no date yet for a new TV8, but we'll wait and see. We'll see what's coming up. But I want to say thank you to everyone for watching my video, and I hope you stick around for more content. I have plenty of non-2v8 videos ready. Don't worry, even if they throw 5 more 2v8s next year, don't worry, I got plenty of ideas to fill in the gaps. My schedule better look like behaviors. Only 2v8, no chaos shuffle, no lights out, no other game modes, no holidays, just 2v8 and then normal stuff. I got a nice spicy video coming up, so, and until next time.